Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking. This is Dark Domains. Now, Dark Domains is a game that I've had in my collection for quite some time. And if you've been following my channel, you'll know that I have massively reduced the amount of games that I own. I'll talk a little bit about that in my final thoughts. And that isn't what I'm here to talk about. I'm not here to talk about reducing the number of games in your collection. What I am here to talk about is here to talk about the fact that this game, a game that I really enjoy, is coming out with a second edition, and they are enhancing the base game and actually adding some expansion material as well. And so I've dusted off the old review chops because I don't do this a lot as far as this goes. I mean, but some friends of mine that run this company, they knew I liked the first game, and they asked me if I would be willing to take a little bit of time to make this video and talk about what I liked about Dark Domains to begin with, and then comment on the changes, and then also talk about the new stuff they've added. So I'm going to do that now, and then we'll come back here, and then I'll talk a little bit more about this game, the expansion stuff, what I really like about the expansion, and also just, how this game has managed to stay in my collection after I have massively culled it over the years. All right, let's do that. Years ago, about 4 years ago, in fact. Dark Domains is a game that I still have in my collection. I'll talk a little bit about that in my final thoughts, but let me just tell you right now, at least for me, that is pretty high praise. When I did the video for this, I couldn't wait to get the production copy of it because the original video was for a crowdfunding campaign. The designer and also the publishers are friends of mine, and so when they asked if I'd be willing to take a look at the game, look at the enhancements they've done to the first edition of the game, and also look at the expansion material, I jumped at the chance because, I was really looking forward to see what they did. Speaking of enhancements, I am not going to go into a full-on how the game is played thing here. I am going to just talk about the noticeable changes if you've played the first edition of the game. If you want to see how the game is played, I strongly suggest you go ahead and follow the link in this video, because that will go back to the preceding video I did for Dark Domains, because in a nutshell, the gameplay with some tweaks and changes is pretty much the exact same thing. So, okay, this is Dark Domains. You are a person that's been hired by the king to revitalize this area of the world, but in fact you are actually evil, and you're trying to corrupt the portion of the world, and you're trying to gain as many evil points as you possibly can, and the person who does the best job of that will win the game. So, just go, like I said, let's just start off with some of the enhancements. So, as with any game, one thing of working in the board game industry that has taught me over the last 8 or 9 years now has been that it doesn't matter how many times you play test a game, doesn't matter how many times you take a look at it, doesn't matter how many times you mess with it, you're going to miss something. You're going to need to go back, and somebody's going to say, wow, this would have worked better if you had just done X. And that is it doesn't matter what game, that is not a fault to the first version of this game by any means. The first version of the game, I've played it, I love it, I enjoy it, but they did things to make things better. And sometimes it's just as simple as adding a tracker board, which is like one of these, and you can see I have one right there as well. Instead of having, like umpteen number of different resources that you have to have in different stacks and what have you in front of you. Now you can just have a token, and then you can say, how many coins do I have? How many fire elements do I have? How many workers do I have? Those sorts of things. You can just keep track of those on this player board. And also the tracker board also gives you the phase board over through, well, there's like a big phase board right there, but now each player will have a phase board. In the past, you had a figure that was the person that represented you at the beginning of the game, like what type of the avatar, if you will, that you played with. Now you have these, right? But you're going to get a couple of those, and then that will determine your starting resources. And after that, you just kind of ditch it. And that's been seen in a lot of modern games now, where you kind of get a card that's randomly given to you at the beginning of the game, and that determines what you start with, whether, and it's just different resources, like elements that you have, things like that. And you just get to select those. This game also has spell cards, which are located over here. In the past, the spell cards were just like a big giant deck. Now they've kind of divvied it up to the different types of spell cards, so you can grab and you have a better idea. You can kind of cultivate. Do you want to have attack cards? Do you want to have production cards, defense cards, control cards? You have a better idea of what you're grabbing when you're actually taking your spells, and so you can kind of point yourself in certain directions, if you will, as far as the type of strategies that you're going to implement as you play the game. I should also mention that there are just less of things now. Like the spell deck has been, I believe they said that it was halved, so there's less spells now in the game. So it isn't one of those things where you have a giant deck of cards where you never actually get the card you're looking for. Which I've always thought that was weird when you're playing a game that has like a stack of cards. It's like like that big, and you use like that much of it in a game, and so you could play the game probably like 20 times, and there'd be cards that you never see because you're never getting through them. So that's the thing where they've kind of ditched some of the cards in some of these stacks. The building cards. Now, if you play the game, you will build, like this is a market, and then later on you will twist the market into being like the black market, by making it an evil place that you go. So the building cards have been, again, balanced, refined, and now there's less of them. So you get to see those cool things that you really want to see. Like here's the castle. That when you turn it becomes the evil fortress, and like you really want to have a cool castle and build that in your domain and turn it into an evil fortress. But what if you never see it when you're playing the game? Stuff like that. And that was actually kind of something that kind of poked in my head a little bit too, because you have this long string of cards, these buildings, and buildings are really the key to the game because they create production. You get to put monsters in them. You get to and they just become part of your domain board. But there was never when people would take them, you just replenish them at the end of the round. And the only way you ever wiped everything clean was if nobody took any buildings, which never happened, or rarely happened, I should say. But now, with less of the building cards, you get to see more of them again. Really, really good choice as well for the development team and the design. And I should mention, speaking of buildings, and this was ingenious, and also one of those things where it's so you have a building, let's say you have this market, right? And then you turn it into an evil black market, and it's on your board, and here, I'll just grab a monster. And let's say you had this air elemental guarding it. But despite your best efforts, when the adventuring parties come out and attack, they manage to destroy, they kill your monster, they kill the black market, and it's gone. And in the past, it was you lose it, it would be gone, and it just because they blew it up. But now, when this is awesome, you don't have as big of a feeling. You just flip it back over. They eradicated the bad. It's no longer a black market. It's just a normal market again. And of course, you can send a minion there on your next turn just to turn it into the evil black market again as well. But and that works for all the buildings. You no longer have the building destroyed out from underneath you when the adventurers successfully attack it, which I thought was a really, really, really good change. The first player token, in the past you had to go to the location on the board to have the first player token move. If nobody selects that, the first player token still moves. It still moves clockwise around the board. I like that, obviously, because you'd always be in a situation where, because you only have, in a worker placement game, even though I thought they did a good choice when they designed the game of making when you go to the first player token, they gave you some coins as well as getting the first player token. So it kind of enticed you to go and be there, but there were a lot of times when nobody would go and take it. And so the person who was going first just kept going first over and over and over again, and because nobody else wanted to quote unquote waste a turn to go there. But now the first player token will still revolve around the board clockwise at the end of each round. And the other thing, the last thing that I really noticed with the change and the enhancements to the game were the henchmen. Again, I'm kind of touching a little bit on how the game plays, but there's these spots here where you get to claim these henchmen that give you special powers, and there's these two henchmen in the far off lands that you have to just hope you get a good one. Like here's, oh well, that's not bad. The Archlich Arceus. Once per turn, you can convert workers into evil, which I think is kind of neat. You must slay them and turn them into undead or something. But regardless, the henchmen, there were like lots of henchmen that were super cool, and then there were some that were just kind of like and the ones that were were all either like removed from what I can tell in the game and replaced with something better, or they were enhanced as well, and that made the henchman spots even more fun to go to and even more cool stuff. But that's those are the things that have been improved upon. So if you played the first game and there were like aspects of it that you were like, oh, I didn't really like this, I didn't really like that, just know that the game has been rebalanced, given a good once over, if you will, and it has been improved in some ways that are like evident and more evident than others, but overall just a more enjoyable play experience. Now you might have noticed this board over here. This is the expansion board, and not only do you have this expansion board, but you also get a bunch of other components that get added to the game. Now, I should mention that this board is not going to be this small. This is a prototype. It will be a larger board, and this one will just go on to alongside the board like I did over there, but it'll be a larger one, and there will be a designated spot to kind of just put it on the game board as well. It is a spot that, once again, you place your minions or your workers into these locations on the board if you want to use them. And if you remember, or if you never played the game to begin with, workers that are placed on your player board to take actions that are on your board will go first. Then workers that are placed on there will go second, and then you will do the actions where you've placed on the main board as well. And remember, the main board has that cool aspect of where you start with number 1, go to number 2, and there's kind of like a path that you follow, and you process all of those things slowly, one by one, kind of thing. So, but this one doesn't have a path. You will just satisfy these before you actually get to go on to here. And these spots are pretty straightforward. When you go up here to the black pool, when you activate that, you will be able to just gain 2 elements of your choice. If you go to the black library, that allows you to take 2 spells from one of the decks of spells that are over there. And the final thing is the market. And when you go to the market, there's all these different conversion rates that you can do, where you can actually convert evil into one of these resources over here, like workers, or and this, like here you convert 1 evil and turn it into 2 workers, for example. Or 1 evil becomes 2 wood. And you can also, you can see the arrows kind of go back and forth, and so you convert the other way as well. You'll notice that this spot is huge, just like the spot over here is huge for the Builders Guild. You can, in either spot, any number of people can use that spot, but you can only put 1 worker in that spot. But you can do these exchanges as many times as you want. So that's kind of one of those cool things there. Now that isn't it. You don't just get the player board. You also will get a bunch of cool new monsters, and it's kind of tough to see this, but like phantoms, and here's Haramuto. And if you kind of guess, like with like the Black Pool and the Wing Kong Market and Egg Street Library, this is definitely taking an Asian feel to it, like if you will. Like remember when D&D actually had the Oriental Adventures book that came out that had ninjas and stuff in it. So that's kind of like, I think that's what they're going for here. I don't know for sure, but these are cool. But these are just more exotic new monsters, and you get a bunch of these, and you get to add those to your monster decks that are over here. You will also get a bunch of more heroes. You have a knight, Kanushi, Busho. So once again, staying with the theme, there's a samurai, and you get some henchmen as well that are once again themed for the expansion, and you get some cool new buildings that you also will get to build, and these are added to the deck as well. And then finally, you get more of one of the coolest things about the game. And once again, I said I was going to talk about the rules. One of the coolest things is that they have these this fortune deck. And at the beginning of each turn, you take these 2 fortunes and you turn them over, and depending upon the cards that you draw, there's certain aspects that will take effect that turn and affect how the game is played for that turn. And this is one of the coolest parts of Dark Domains. I love that. I love this aspect of the game. But you get even more cool fortune cards that are added to that deck, so you can play with it. And I should mention as well that the expansion is super cool because there actually are 2 ways that you can use it. You can just use it as a way to just add a bunch of cool stuff to the game, and you can just add this stuff to the decks. But there's also rules that give you an aspect of, like, if you want to actually inject more of the expansion into the game, it actually has rules of how to make sure that all of, like, the cool new added material that you're adding to the game gets added in, and you see that more prevalently. And I get why they do that, right? You know, it's like if you have this game and you've played it lots and lots of times, you've kind of seen the same monsters, seen the same henchmen, and so on and so forth. You're like, I got all this new stuff. I want to see that new stuff right away. They actually do include rules on how to add it into it. This is like the perfect kind of expansion for me. It just, I think if you've watched my videos for a long time, or if you watch my podcast Do Weekly, one of the things I really don't like is when I have a game that I love and I enjoy playing and I think it's awesome, and then all of a sudden somebody was like, oh hey, we got this new way to play that game that you love and awesome with this new expansion to come. Just throw away those old rules. Let's just go ahead and do some new stuff. And I've never been a fan of those kinds of expansions. But I love expansions that just give me more cool stuff that I can put into the game and to keep it fresh and interesting. And that's exactly what this does. But, basically this took a game that I already really, really enjoyed, and it fixed it in ways that I didn't even know it needed fixing because I already enjoyed the game, and made it cooler, and then added some cool new content. And so I'm really excited to see what the final results, if you will, are going to be once this game, the second edition of it, comes out with the expansion material. But let me talk about that and some other stuff, and you know me, I'll ramble in my final thoughts. All right, so that is Dark Domains as far as the new stuff goes, and as far as like the new expansion board, and how those things have enhanced the game and also just made the game a little bit better. So Dark Domains, I mentioned that this is still in my collection, and if you've watched my weekly show that I do with the industry folks, and some other vlog stuff that I've done, I've talked about the fact that at one point my collection got to several thousand games. I never counted it. If I had to take a guess, it was between 4,000 and 5,000 board games, and it was way too many. And I had a situation where I had to redo the flooring here in the basement. My wife and I redid the whole thing ourselves, and I had to basically clear everything out of here. And this is where my collection was. And I took all of my collection, I moved it to a storage locker. And when I got to the storage locker, and then when I finally got to the flooring, I basically sat there and I said, I didn't miss hardly any of the games, having any of them on my shelf, hardly any of them just being available to me to play. And I realized that it was just, for me anyway, it was just silly to hold on to them. So I've been culling it, and I'm getting rid of them and getting rid of them and getting rid of them. And I'm down to a more manageable number now. I don't know what the exact number is, but the reason I'm telling you that is because when I've made up my mind as far as when to get rid of games or what games to get rid of, it's come down to just like, do I see myself playing this game? And Dark Domains is a game that has consistently hit my table, and played with my group on a regular basis. And so it was one of those, no, I can't get rid of that because it's pretty cool. And that was before I heard that they're going to make all this cool new stuff and what have you. So for me anyway, and if it matters to you at all, for somebody who's played thousands of different games in the last, whatever 16 years I've been doing this in the hobby, it has to be something pretty special for me to keep it. And it is definitely one of my go-to medium heavy Euros with worker placement aspects and resource allocation, and plus timing allocation as well is something that's so huge in this game. And there's all kinds of things I really enjoy about it. I love pulling the two fortune cards, and seeing what weird aspect is going to be affecting the world at that given time, and how it's going to affect the way what you get to do. I love the timing of when do I convert my good building into an evil building, and how am I going to affect the process as far as my resource engine, as far as the stuff that's being created for me. Like, when can I comfortably switch those things over? Trying to determine, which portion of my domain is going to be attacked by those goody adventurers, and trying to prevent that from happening, or being able to defend myself again, or wanting them to attack me, because then I can earn more points, more evil if I succeed. So all of those things are things, and a lot more, that I really enjoy. Now, with the expansion material and what's been enhanced, I went into it in fairly good detail in the section about the middle section of this video. But I can't express enough the types of expansions that I really enjoy. And some of these, I was trying to think of other games I could reference that really show up for me as far as expansions. And I sadly, because I've been doing this for so long, they're all like older games, and so I wonder how many people are actually going to understand what I'm saying. But like the older worker placement game, also something that I kept in my collection, like Pillars of the Earth, added an expansion to it, and all it did was just add more stuff, and it added a board as well, but that board just synergized perfectly with the other places and other worker placement spots you have. And that's what like this does. It adds this board, and it adds like a new spot that you can use. And the timing of the how that board processes is incredibly important, because it happens before the main board, and so you can use that to set up what you're going to be doing. And so I like that. I've always liked games that, there's worker placement games where you go to the spot and you get the coins, or you get the wood or whatever, and that's fine. But to me, when you have that added depth of worker placement, it just kind of adds another layer. It adds another, I don't know, trickery, for lack of a better word, that I really enjoy. And so when I had that extra board, we adds the timing, adds new things that I can do, that can also then I can, the stuff I do that will actually affect the rest of the stuff I do in that turn. Those are things I really like. And I just, but then it doesn't actually like change everything as far as the way the game is played. I mean, yes, there's another level of timing and another spots and other things that you can use, but you don't have to deal with like, okay, remember how you learned how to play that game? Now throw that away. Let's learn it again and try again with a brand new game. And what that says is, a lot of times in those games that do that, it's because the game that they had before, the brand new one, just needed to actually do that, because of the fact that it wasn't any good. I shouldn't say any good. I mean, but there was something wrong, right? And there was an issue with it that needed to be changed, needed to be fixed, because it was better. And that was the cool thing about this, is that Dark Domains, to me, would just play great, and it was awesome. And I didn't see that there was anything wrong with it, and there isn't. You could buy this game, you saw it on a store shelf, you could pick it up right now and you'd have fun with it. But things like this board to track your resources, It's just so much better than having just giant piles of resources all over the place trying to manage them, where you can just look at a tracker board and track things down. And that's ingenious. And it's something that, like, somebody probably had a light bulb moment and said, why are we doing this? Why do we have all this stuff? We could have just done this. It would be so much better. And so stuff like that. The the enhancements that they've done between first and second edition were things that made a game that was great even better, but weren't needed, if that makes sense. And so that's why, like, now I can see Dark Domains. Once I get all the cool new expansion, well, I have the cool new, but the official cool new expansion stuff like that. Once I have that, I can absolutely see myself having this hit the table even more. Just because they've kind of just, with the expansion material, pumped some new life into it, and also just made the game better. And